Because we are in the midst of a profound shift in consciousness in our country and in our world. And more of us are recognizing that the moment is now and that each of us is the messenger of peace. So many spiritual masters have come to this world to teach us the fundamental truth that love is the highest vibration. And what we know in New Thought and Ancient Wisdom teaching is that love is who and what we are. So if A equals B and B equals C, we are the highest vibration. Each of us is a perfect expression of that vibration. Now, when I say that in some circles, they might say something like, wow, that's awfully arrogant, isn't it? To say that you are the highest frequency? And as our dear friend Marianne Williamson, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more in a few minutes, I assure you, says, who are we not to be? Because if I am believing in my own lack and limitation, I cannot serve the world in the way I can if I know the deepest truth of who and what I am. So arrogance is actually believing in my own limitation. Ego is believing that I'm broken. So we're going to be talking about the awakened mind today. And as Reverend Joan, she gave me this subtle instruction, which I really appreciated. What is the role of the mind? And I thought, wow, what is the role of the mind? There is going to be a profound paradox today. The profound paradox is simply this. When I believe I am my thoughts, I am living in a limited and limiting way, and I am living in a belief in separation. The brain, the human brain, is an organ. Okay? Let's be clear about that. The lungs are here to breathe for us. The heart is here to pump blood for us. And the mind is here to sort and separate and have ideas and be powerfully creative, have thoughts, have constructs. It is a very powerful tool. The issue is, for many of us, we believe that we are our mind. Most of us are walking around believing that we are our thoughts. That the thoughts are the truth of who and what we are. And here's the paradox. When I recognize that is something I have, but not something I am, I live beyond the mind. I don't need it to change. That's the important moment for me to get, and this is for me to get, to recognize I don't need to change my mind. I need to recognize it's not who and what I am, and keep my mind focused on spirit, like we started. And really what I mean is recognizing that spirit is who and what I am, and I'm not my mind, and then the mind becomes a tool. But here's the paradox. And I want to talk a little bit about where science and spirituality are coming to the same place right now. That's why I think we're at a profound moment. Because spirituality often gets equated with belief. But belief is what? The mind. And so religion, and I'm going to be really controversial here intentionally, religion is often a set of beliefs or constructs or ideas or ideology that tells us how we need to be or what we need to think. And where is that centered? In the mind. True spirituality is living in the unknown and in the expansiveness of spirit and living in the question of what else is possible. Science, in its purest form, is having a hypothesis and then asking the question of what's possible. But here's the issue with science. If I say to you, look for yellow in this room, and let's be in the question of, I wonder if there's yellow in this room, where does your eye go? Sandra has yellow. Jerome is wearing a form of yellow. Do you hear why I'm saying this? Science in its purest form is to be living in the question, the infinite possibilities. But if I say, look for the red in the room, my mind goes to the red and I see it. And so quantum science and quantum mechanics is now recognizing what the spiritual masters have been saying for a long, long time. What we focus on, we create.
Yes.
Does it mean before I looked for red, there was less red in the room? I don't know. But what I do know is when I focus on red, I see it. There it is. It comes into my conscious awareness. So that's science and religion in the form that it has been practiced for many, many years. What we're moving into and we're emerging into is a recognition that both of these, spirituality and science, are now going to truly be in the question. The infinite unknown. And when I say unknown, I mean unknown here.
Yeah.
Because as the Tao Te Ching says, once we have described the Tao, it is no longer the Tao. Once I've defined what spirituality is, it quite possibly is no longer spirituality, because spirituality is a dedication to live as spirit. Live in spirit. So I had a profound opportunity last night, and a few of you were there. I was invited to bring together 20 New Thought ministers to host a private evening with Marianne Williamson, which was quite delightful. And the intention of that evening was to bring New Thought ministers together to have a conversation about what's really happening in America and the role of New Thought in politics. So if you remember back to the reading when I talked about the observer and becoming the observer of all things, we can, when we land in a place of deeply knowing who and what we are, we can observe the world without being pulled by the world. Yes. I can observe what's happening in the world without my judgment of what's happening. And so I want to read a quote that Marianne said yesterday when she presented in Santa Cruz. I think it's really important for New Thought communities to hear this. We need to stop displacing our rage onto the symptom. We have to look deeply at the cause. I'm going to say it one more time. We need to stop displacing our rage onto the symptom. We have to look deeply at the cause. And so in New Thought communities, we stand up and we talk about oneness. And in New Thought communities, we stand up and talk about love and compassion. And then we turn on the TV and we see a certain political figure. And what happens? And then sometimes, even in New Thought circles, we collectively are against someone. And what do we know? What happens when we're against? It creates separation. What else happens? It energizes. It gets bigger.
And the ego will attack.
Say it again.
And the ego will attack.
Ego will attack. So my ego will attack because here's the mind in its unawakened state.
That's true.
In the unawakened state, my mind is judging everything as good and bad or right and wrong, safe or not safe. There's a reason that it's there. We used to live in caves. And when we walked out, we might get eaten. So there's a reason we have the response, right? There's a reason that we have the fight, flight, or freeze response. That's the unawakened mind. When I believe I am that, I believe I am my opinions. And we have become an opinionating culture. We have entire websites that are built on sharing opinions. We have entire news programs now that are built on sharing opinions. And when I believe I am my thoughts, I tend to believe that my opinions are the right ones. And therefore, I tend to think your opinions are the wrong ones. And I'm living in a world of duality with the unawakened mind, and that is suffering. So what I'm really saying, let me break it down really simple. We can be angry at someone. We can be fighting for something. We can be fighting against something. But what I'm inviting today is we are actually here to surrender the human brain part of ourselves, the opinions and perspectives, the divisiveness, the symptoms are all the isms. Sexism, racism, homophobia, all the ideas of separation. I am different than you because of the way we look. I'm different than you because of the way you grew up or where you grew up. Those are the symptoms. But what we know now, spirituality and science, is we're actually one organism. We're one organism. We're each cells in this organism. Now, I'm not, there's probably a doctor, well, I know there's at least one doctor in the room. So, there are several doctors in the room, I'm guessing, that would probably say this in a much more articulate way than I. But what do we know when cells get together? You have to roll with me with the metaphor here. Cells get together and start fighting something. Then the other ones fight back, right? The immune system. So what I want to acknowledge is, first and foremost, I understand why people are hurt and angry and scared. So I want to normalize that. The greatest gift I can offer myself and the world is to allow myself to experience what is present. What I'm inviting, though, is what we're recognizing now is that we can actually change the brain. I want to invite two people to stand up and go to the aisle for a moment. Two volunteers. 1, 2. So stand where you're not going to hit someone, but spread your arms out. Perfect. Now close your hands in front of you. With one thumb on top of the other. Do it again. Do it with one thumb on top of the other. Just notice which thumb it is and do it again. Is it the same thumb? Now try the new one. Try the opposite. Okay? Try the opposite. How does it feel? A little weird. Try the opposite again. Now keep doing it this way for a few more times. What's happening? It gets easier, right? Thank you for participating. So there is a term, and you can do this at home by yourself, or after when you're in a safe place, you're not going to hit someone. There is a term called getting stuck in a groove. That came from neural pathways. When we do something the same way over and over and over again, we literally create a neural pathway in our brain. Most of us don't consciously think about the way we brush our teeth. We do it the same every day. So I, for the last 50 some odd years, have picked up my toothbrush, because I'm left-handed with my left hand, and I've done my thing. Now I might have modified this a little because someone taught me I need to maybe brush in a different way. But for the most part, that is an unconscious, repetitive behavior that I have. There's a groove in my brain that's the brush your teeth groove. Okay, when I put on my shoes, I tend to be sock, shoe, shoe. Now, you might be sock, shoe, right? And if you want to see something really funny, go to YouTube and look up Archie Bunker and Meathead having this conversation. It's brilliant. I remember being a little kid and thinking that's so cool. And what happened is they had arguments for why their position was the right one. And Archie Bunker, I'm like, oh no, I don't want to agree with Archie Bunker, but he had a right. He said, you put on your sock and your shoe, and then if you're in a fire, you can at least hop down the street. So, as funny as that is, what we're really looking at today is the question of what have you been doing repetitively that has created a groove in your brain. Another way to say it is a habit, a way of being in the world. And what we're here to do is interrupt that. Now, there are a couple different possibilities here. One, we can work on creating a new groove through changing our behavior. New thumb, new thumb, new thumb. That might be why we go to therapy. That might be why we come to spiritual community. That might be why we listen to wonderful music, because, I've gotten into a different groove. But what I'm inviting today is a little bit deeper perspective here. And that is, what if we can take that experience that we call human and spiritualize it? In other words, we are no longer spiritual beings having a human experience. That was profound. How many years ago when Terry said that? Years and thousands, hundreds. We are now recognizing we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience.
Yay.
And that we can actually live as spirit, and then it actually changes the brain. So I don't have to focus on creating a new groove. The new groove is recognizing who and what I am, and I can live beyond the stories, the ideas, the beliefs. So what am I doing repetitively? Repetitively, I was turning on constant negative news, CNN, and listening to their narrative about the world. And I was believing in the division of the world. We're a country divided. It's not true.
That's right.
That is an illusion of the mind.
That's true.
What I want to say, because as ministers, we don't endorse political figures. And what I want to say is, I also have a responsibility as a minister to stand up here and say that we're at a profound moment in history, and that we are here to observe, but we're here to observe and then be in the world. So when we are trying to make social change from the construct or the belief in brokenness, or something's wrong here, I need to save this, I need to fight against this, I'm creating more. As a matter of fact, that is why there's a certain person in the White House. Because enough of us were against him that he rose to power. So what I want to say is we're all responsible. I'm not blaming us. I'm empowering us. Okay, there, we did that. Right? I have seen, light workers of the world, Facebook groups. We're the light workers and we're against. Right? What's getting created in our New Thought communities when we're against? And I'm going to read the quote again based on that, because this is the important message for me today. We need to stop displacing our rage onto the symptom. Racism, sexism, homophobia, inequality. Those are the symptoms. Do you hear what we're saying? Displacing our rage. We're not here to ignore their happening. We're here to be love in the midst of that. To be love in the world. That's how the world changes. We get down to what's really happening. What's really happening, and here's a world you don't usually hear in New Thought. Morality. Because even if you look up the definition of morality, it probably will tell you something from the mind. A set of beliefs or ideas that we need to abide by so that we can be good people in the world. Great. Here's the catch, and those of us who are New Thought ministers knows this is really, really interesting. In New Thought, we invite you to look within, to create your own idea of what is moral for you. Who have you come here to be? What are you fighting? What is that creating? Because it becomes profoundly simple. Most of us want peace. Most of us want love. And by the way, that is not a left or right thing. People want love and connection and wholeness. The only problem is most of us, and I can say most fairly at this point in our evolution, are looking for it out there. And when out there doesn't look the way I want it to feel in here, I want to change it out there so that something can happen in here. But what we know is it's the opposite. This is really about me recognizing very deeply, who have I come here to be? Who have you come here to be? What is your role right now in what's happening in our country and in our world? Because what is needed more than ever is love. Not to be loving, but to be love in the world. And so, again, we're getting, it's interesting because we had a great conversation with ministers in Marianne last night about how a lot of New Thought has pulled away from politics. A lot of us have been like, oh, we don't go there. We're just here in consciousness. I have. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm guilty, but I don't mean guilty in like I've been bad. But I've done it. I was like, that is too much. I'm going to unplug and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to know my wholeness and know my oneness with all people, and I'm not going to look at the appearance that is the opposite of that or other than that. I've done that. And honestly, for me, I think it was an important stage. Because I was so hooked by all the drama. right? By all the drama. And it was really, if I'm really honest, it was that I didn't want to look at my own internal drama. And it was much more fun to look at someone else's. That's why we have reality TV. We should start a show, The Real Housewives of Agape Bay Area. That would be really fun. So what I want to offer in closing is really an invitation. I always like to close with an invitation. And that invitation is, who have you come here to be? What is your individual and unique calling in this world? Reverend Michael Beckwith says we are not here to save the world. We are here to serve the new paradigm. Breaking that down, we're not here to save anyone because no one needs saving. And so, if it's true that we're one organism, in my own individual journey, when I have the calling to live a more spiritual life, and for me what that means is a life more dedicated to knowing who I am and being that in the world, everything unlike that needed to fall away. And let me tell you, one word, painful. It was painful because what I realized is everything that I had ever believed about what I thought was true was no longer what was true. It was the illusion. What I thought was the illusion became reality, and what I thought was reality became the illusion. And for me, that process was painful because I had to look at everything that was in the shadow. I had to look at the deeply held unconscious beliefs, biases, and fear that were creating me living in a world of conflict. That's what's happening in our country. It's great news. It is painful if we get in there and look at that. But what's really happening is that it's coming up for the healing. Does that mean we have a passive role? I don't think so. It might mean that for you, and that's okay. And what I mean by passive, I'm not saying it's okay if you're in a place where you need to unplug and be in meditation. We honor that. There are others here who now are ready to be love in the world, to be a part of healing and returning to wholeness. Not fixing or saving, but helping be a part of ushering in a new consciousness. And if that means voting for a particular candidate, you go in your heart and you look at what's true for you. If that means being in a demonstration, you get to go into your heart and see what's right for you. My invitation, though, and our invitation, is to not be there standing against.
Yes.
Consciousness is an algorithm. An algorithm is whatever we focus on, we get more. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, let me give you more of that. Actually, that's how the last election was manipulated. An algorithm. Yeah, it genuinely was. Right? And what happened was there was a group of people that discovered that the number one thing that will cause a person to vote is fear. Right, now that's the old paradigm, okay? I'm not buying into that. What I'm saying is that's what they concluded. So they went into social media and they created these algorithms that would give people something to be afraid about. And when they were afraid, they voted for a particular person. Right, so then we come in and we're against that and we give it more energy. We're fanning that fire. It's time to unplug from that conversation and move into the frequency of love. And that is really the only frequency. And so Marianne Williamson has gotten a lot of flack for saying that love is the answer. Watch Saturday Night Live, it's pretty hilarious last night. They make fun of her in a very, very hilarious way. But the truth is that the only way, and I'm getting this from Marianne, she said this last night, so I'm not going to claim it as my own. The only way great social change has ever come, really, is through religion and spirituality. Right? Martin Luther King, Gandhi. If you look back throughout history, women's suffrage movement, we have stood up and said no. But what we're going to do now is not stand up and say no. We're going to stand up and say yes. Yes to love. Yes to oneness. Yes to the vibration and the frequency of peace on earth. We are it. Jesus the Christ came to tell us that. We are the peace of the world. He wasn't talking about himself as an individual. That goes back to that ego thing that I said when we said we are magnificent beings of light. Well, who are you to say that? That's what Jesus was saying. Saying we are the light of the world.
Yes.
But people turn that into he is and I'm not. So the calling is simple. The invitation is simple. I'm asking each of you to be the love and light in the world and truly be who and what you've come here to be. And I don't have to finish working through all my stuff to be that, by the way. On the human realm, it's always in process. We can, in an instant, stand in the truth of who and what we are and be that in the world. That is the only way change has ever happened in our world. And so now, each of us is called to be that.
Yes.
Are you willing to say yes to the call?
Yes.
Are you willing to be love in the world?
Yes.
So repeat after me. I am love.
I am love.
I am light.
I am light.
I have come here to make a difference.
I have come here to make a difference.
I stand for love.
I stand for love.
I stand for truth.
I stand for truth.
I am the light of the world.
I am the light